Hello and welcome to Random Ramblings with a Random Indie Author. Now, today I'm going to be talking about victim complexes and actual victims. Now, you might be wondering, why are you touching on this subject? You're just an author. So, the reason behind it is, it's imperative to understand the differences between the two to understand the dynamics of my main characters and the antagonist in my upcoming graphic novel, Smile, You're on Camera. Now, people with victim complexes typically never take accountability for any of the actions that caused the situation that they're claiming they were wronged in. And more oftentimes than not, you will always see a pattern of, yeah, this person did this, so I was really hurt. And then because of them, I also got hurt in this situation, in this situation, in this situation. And most of the time, the pattern is they say that a relationship or a friendship or a situation just ended badly because of another person without giving a reason behind of what actually happened and being very vague about what happened. Like limited evidence, or the story's slightly different each time they tell it. Now, the thing is, stories being slightly different each time you tell it also doesn't prove that someone has a victim complex. What typically does is if they're blaming others for their own actions. Like, say, person A liked a church on fire, but blames person B because person B saw them hold the match and didn't stop person A. That's a person with a victim complex, because person A is blaming person B for person A's actions and then claiming that person B's lack of action hurt person A. Now, actual victims. Actual victims typically will either push things down, push things to the side, have really bad humor based around their trauma, or they do blame the other person, but their story does stay somewhat consistent. There's evidence, and more times than not only is this victim the only one that this other person hurt. So you take person A, and person A was stabbed by person B. Person A hides the wound and stays with person B because it's safer to stay with the problem than let them go out of fear that person B is going to stab person C. Person C sees that person A was stabbed and questions why person A didn't tell on person B. Person B covers it up and says that person A did it to themselves, so person C perceives that person A is lying and has a victim complex. I don't know if any of that made sense. However, when person A finally comes forward and shows, hey, so person B stabbed me here, and they were going to stab person C, but I stayed with person B, so no stabbings happened again. Now, if you can see the differences between the two, person A in the first situation was the reason the place went ablaze, and person A in the second situation wasn't the reason they were stabbed. They don't know why they were stabbed. However, they would still find a way to blame themselves, or if they didn't blame themselves, they would try and figure out a way to communicate that, hey, you gotta listen to victims when they come forward. Now, you might be asking, why would I bother going into detail of what's the differences between victim complexes and actual victims, and why would I give the person A, B, C example? Well, the reason is the main characters, Jamie and Kale, and the antagonists, Timothy and Sir Jason. Timothy and Sir Jason are individuals with victim complexes. Jamie and Kale are individuals who are actual victims. Kale typically pushes things off as a joke or bundles in the trauma without explaining why and tries to steer away from the conversations. However, when they do open up about it, they're like, Haha, super funny, right? And very clearly, it's an unfunny situation, but they're trying to deter the fact that they were hurt in the past because they're scared to open up about it. Jamie is an individual who typically will shove things down so far that he explodes. And that's why Jamie understands why Kale does the things he does, despite the fact they have different reactions to their separate individual traumas. Timothy is Jamie's ex, but also an individual that goes on to hurt emotionally and physically Kale. And Timothy has a victim complex because later on in the book, you're going to see him try and deter every conversation that has to do with Jamie and put the blame on Jamie. In the past, in the book, between Jamie and Timothy, Timothy had done some things that caused Jamie to get in trouble, despite the fact that Jamie had done nothing wrong. Timothy triggered Jamie from a past situation that Jamie had been in to get Jamie to react negatively, to get Jamie into trouble with the legal system in the book. Now, Sir Jason is just somebody who happened to just be a terrible person, only interacts with Kale once. However, Kale got a delivery wrong for a specific item, and instead of being like, hey, you got this wrong, Sir Jason curses Kale. Now, why would Sir Jason have a victim complex? Well, it's because he has done this to multiple people and still claims that he is not the issue of why this keeps happening. So, the differences between the two is Timothy and Sir Jason are situation person A, and Jamie and Kale are situation person A2. And seeing the two and knowing the difference, it makes it a lot easier to understand why the story progresses in the way it does. Because more times than not, Jamie and Kale will avoid the tough conversations because they're scared it's going to evolve from a situation like Timothy and Sir Jason causing issues. I hope any of that makes sense, but that is Random Ramblings with a random indie author. I don't know what I'm doing with my life.